Hello, and welcome to this special edition of Thrive for Live Facebook Live. I'm so excited to talk to you today. Our topic is how to thrive in wealth and health. And we have our guest here, Dr. Elisa Chiang, who's going to be coming to talk to us. But before we go in a little bit with her, I want to talk, you're probably thinking to yourself, what does health and wealth have to do with each other, right? But they actually have a lot to do. So if you're new to me, I'm actually internal medicine and obesity medicine physician. So part-time I work in primary care. The other time I work in obesity medicine. And so the one thing that I hear a lot with my patients is that sometimes, like for example, if they needed a diagnostic mammogram, they have to reschedule or they have to cancel because they're not financially able to afford that diagnostic mammogram. Or if we're talking about the next step would be to get an MRI for a particular condition, they're saying, well, I'm not sure if I can be able to afford this. A lot of times people aren't able to afford even medications that are not as expensive, like certain insulins can be less expensive, but it drains the budget. So it's so important that we kind of talk a little bit about wealth and how actually having being financially stable, which will help us with being more healthy in the future. And so before we get started, let me introduce our guest expert today. So Dr. Elisa Chiang is a board certified ophthalmologist and fellowship trained oculoplastic surgeon who has worked in both private practice as far as hospital, bureaucratic hospital system that led to burnout. During that time, she became a life coach. And during medical school, she dove into investing, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and she flipped at least 2 houses in medical school, which is amazing. And then since then, she continues to invest in real estate, both actively and self-managing rental property passively with syndications in real estate funds. And so she helps her patients overcome burnout, get out of the trap of arrival fallacy, and building their path to financial independence while enjoying the journey to get there. So I'm so happy that we have Dr. Chiang here. Before I continue, was there anything else you'd like to share about yourself?
So my last name is actually pronounced Chiang. I know.
So sorry. Thank you so much.
Right. Yeah, no. If I were to immigrate to the United States today, it would actually be Jiang. But when my parents came, they had a different system that didn't make any sense.
No problem, Chiang. So thank you, Dr. Chiang. Oh, anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself?
No, that was a pretty comprehensive introduction. So.
All right, excellent. Well, I mentioned in your introduction that, working for that hospital system, it led to burnout, which actually led to your transformation, becoming a life coach. Would you mind maybe just telling us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I was working for a big hospital system, and I was on call 24/7 as the only oculoplastic specialist. And it wasn't that call was necessarily that bad, but it was there was a definite lack of support. There was a lack of autonomy. There was, so it wasn't about the hours work per se. It was just about complete kind of lack of control, lack of a real say, lack of a voice that really led to my burnout.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the COVID pandemic actually made things better in a sense because we shut down for a while. And so, then I was only actually working like 1 or 2 days a week. And it really gave time to kind of reflect on life. And I think also a lot of things went online at that point that, that previously, weren't happening. And, Zoom became normalized essentially. And so, I met all these other physicians that just kind of opened up a whole new world.
Oh, wow. And so were you thinking about life coaching prior to this? And then this was just an opening that was like, yes, step in it. Or
so I didn't even know what coaching was when the pandemic started. What I realized was, so I had done that real estate investing in the past. And when I moved to Cleveland, I actually intended to do real estate investing again. So I took a real estate course. And in that course, they actually had to start listening to Life Coach School podcast as part of as one of the assignments, because the course said, mindset is a big component about being successful. And that's when I really learned about coaching, and what it was. And so I actually joined the self-coaching scholars through the life coach school. And then when they offered certification in September, I went ahead and decided to just go ahead and do it. I wasn't 100%, like when I decided to go for certification, I wasn't 100% certain that like I was going to start my own, life coach like business or anything, but I actually thought that it would help me be able to coach myself better and really work on my mindset just even more. And I had heard from other people who did it just for the transformation, that it's transformational. And but in the process of doing that certification, I really just loved, obviously during certification we peer coach, and I just loved doing the coaching. And so
Oh,
then
wow.
that's when yeah,
You fell in love with the coaching,
I did.
and then you decided, not only am I going to coach just on burnout, but then also about wealth.
Yeah, because I do think actually the two are tied together to some extent, right? Because if you, I mean, we kind of call them golden handcuffs in some, the physician paycheck, in a way can be golden handcuffs, right? Like people who feel tied to their job are just trapped with their job because they need that income. And if you didn't need that income, like how much more of a voice would you have? Like how much harder could you even negotiate for better terms when you're not worried about losing?
That's true. You show up differently when you don't really need it than if you're like, okay, I really need to see this. It's your outlook is different, and how you react is different too. Now, going back to your burnout, was there any way that your burnout affected your health as well?
Um, Honestly, I don't know how much it truly affected my health.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think stress is in general good for your health. Um, I can't say if I was working out less because of the burnout. I mean, that's possible. Um,
But maybe not so much with your health. Okay, just wondering.
yeah.
But when you made that transition, because you do work part time in as an ophthalmologist, and you do I guess full time, part time as a life coach, do you feel like because you were more financially stable at the time, it made it easier for you to make that transition? Because I know you mentioned that sometimes when you need the money, you're locked into something. You're locked into it.
Yeah, so I knew financially that I could go part-time and still, be fine, have all my bills paid. It would basically just mean getting to complete financial independence could potentially take longer. But at the same time, building a business is honestly so when you think about all the billionaires in the world, and the people who truly have a lot of wealth, most of them like started companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think about Microsoft and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Amazon, and I mean even Warren Buffett. Yes, he's an investor, but like he has his business, Berkshire Hathaway, right? Like he built that business, and that business is based on investing, but that is still what created his wealth.
Okay.
So in a way, like my life coach business could be a great avenue to wealth. I should say will be in the future, right? So, but of course, taking business, it takes time to grow a business.
No, you're absolutely right. It definitely takes time. And the examples you gave are people who they started like, in a coffee shop, or they started in someone's basement, and they just kept growing with it, and kind of building their business up to where it is now, billions and billions of dollars, and affecting multiple people's lives for sure. May I ask you, what tips can you give to our audience about how they can become financially stable in their lives?
So I think the first thing to learn is to pay yourself first. And so some people don't quite necessarily understand what that means, but basically, like in general, we actually pay the government first, right? If you have a W-2 job, you work for an employer, you're paying your taxes. It comes out of your paycheck before anything else. But actually, if you contribute to your retirement accounts, that comes out even before the taxes, because you're not taxed on what you're put into your retirement account. So that's the first thing, is just start putting something into your retirement accounts. And, you could start as low as 3% and just keep growing that. And in all honesty, most people don't notice that, if you just take the money off the top and set it aside, and then you spend what comes into your bank account. Well, you don't really notice when it's just a little less, you just make do. And so by paying yourself first, then you're establishing that more secure financial future.
I like that. So pay yourself first. Does it matter what type of account you use, whether it's like a Roth IRA or a 401k? I know some people don't have options, but if they did, which one do you think is better?
So if you qualify for a Roth IRA, that is probably the first account I would fund. And well, no, I take that back. If you have a 401k or 403b and your employer matches, then you want to contribute up to the match because that's free money, right? Like if they give you $1 for every dollar you put in, you've just doubled your money.
Gotcha. Oh, that's a good point. So pay up to the match and then go with the Roth IRA.
And then go with the Roth, and then probably then go back to the 401k or 403b after if you max out your Roth IRA and you've maxed out the match.
And I will say too that it's actually, I think it's important, like you said, to pay yourself first, because a lot of times, especially in our generation, we are sometimes thinking that the Social Security will be enough to help us as we age, but we're living a lot longer. And who's to say Social Security will be around when I'm eligible for it? Like.
I mean, I do think there will be some aspect of Social Security that's around, but it's not going to be enough to support you, right? So basically, you want to think of wealth as a table, and you've got different legs on the stool, right? Mm-hmm. And for a stool to stand, you need at least 3 legs. So Social Security could be one of those legs, but you need to find at least 2 other legs. And one of those legs is going to definitely be your retirement accounts. And traditionally, you probably want to try to find a third leg because that's what's going to create a solid wealth table. And then the more legs you have, the more secure your table is.
Okay. Any other tips that you have for people who are trying to get to financial stability?
Yeah. So, and the pay yourself first concept can actually work even further. So even when that paycheck lands in your account, you can actually make it so it's divvied up into potentially different accounts. So one account could be like to pay your rent, mortgage, car payments, like all the payments that you have to make. Another one could be like your save for vacation. If you really want to go on a vacation and this is how you're going to save it, like just automatically transfer it to that saving account earmarked for vacation. And then what you have left is what you have to spend on your kind of, discretionary type expenses. And, so, that's definitely one way to kind of, instead of even potentially making a budget, some people aren't very good at following budgets, but if you can actually just kind of create systems so that you have enough to spend on the things that, you need to be able to pay for each month. And then that allows you to know exactly how much you can spend on the rest for, whatever it is you want to spend it on.
Okay, that makes sense. So not only, like you said, number one, pay yourself first. Number two, create a system. So figure out how you budget, how you want to have your money outlined so that, you're still making strides. Now, what are your thoughts on like short-term savings, like your emergency fund? How many months should somebody usually have?
Ideally, at least 3 months, because for disability insurance, long-term disability insurance kicks in after 90 days, which is 3 months. And so if you can have 3 months of a emergency fund, then you don't necessarily need to pay for short-term disability insurance, which, if you're paying a premium that you never use, is kind of money out the window. So it's better to, just have that money saved in an emergency fund so that you're not paying a premium to protect yourself against that.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Now, speaking of insurance, are there just certain insurances people should have as they age?
Well, health insurance for one.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, you could just have like one accident, break a bone, need surgery, and that could put you in a bankruptcy potentially, right? Unfortunately, healthcare can be extremely expensive. And I mean, you could be completely healthy and just still have something happen. Now, I mean, you could have like just catastrophic health insurance to cover those, really big ticket items, but some amount of health insurance, I do think, is absolutely necessary. depending on your occupation, you probably do want disability insurance, and especially own occupation disability insurance if you're a professional and making, relatively high income. So regular disability insurance will only cover you if you can't have any job. So if you could still flip burgers at McDonald's, like, it's not going to pay out. Right. So if if you're used to making, $80,000-$100,000, like, you want to cover that entire income. If you're disabled, you don't want to, have to be flipping burgers at McDonald's. So own occupation disability insurance specifically will cover you if you cannot do whatever your job is.
Got you. So, it's so interesting that you said that about bankruptcy. I remember when I was in high school, I went to this owner. I had a sewing machine. I wanted him to fix it. And while he was fixing it, he was telling me that he had just had a heart attack. And because he did not have health insurance, it was going to be $200,000 for that hospital visit that he's on the hook for. And he was like, I had to get somebody else to kind of rent out part of my shop because I don't have the financial money to be able to pay this bill. And you're absolutely right. So it is important to have some type of health insurance because you just never know when that shoe's going to drop and you may actually need it. Now, we do have one question from Deborah Clark. That question says, I'm having a hard time getting long-term insurance. Is there something else I can look into? Would you mind explaining what long-term insurance is?
Yeah, I'm not sure if she means long-term disability insurance or
probably long-term care insurance.
Long-term care insurance, like covering for nursing homes. Yeah, so that's actually a realm I honestly don't know a whole lot about, to be honest. Yeah, so I'm not sure that I can really speak to that.
Yeah, just for those who are here, long-term care insurance is insurance you get if for some reason as you get older, like if you need to go into a nursing home, they'll pay part of that monthly visit or monthly premium for that. And she's like, yes, she says, she also comments, this is in case I need care when I can take care of myself. Yeah, so that's what that insurance is. However, sometimes if you have medical conditions, you may not necessarily, it may be too expensive to have long-term care insurance. And so the question is, even if you don't have long-term care insurance, you want to be able to self-insure if for some reason you need to be in the in the assisted living, or if you need to be in a nursing facility for some time. Unfortunately, you can never really, estimate what you may need. But it is good to maybe save on the side just in case, and have, like you said, diversify your holdings so that you can be able to take care of that if you need to, if in case you needed to take care of yourself, because you just never know. And unfortunately, sometimes there are people who they do have what they call Medicaid beds. But for those, you really have to not have any type of assets, no house, no car, nothing, to really even qualify for that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, with the cost of long-term care, a lot of times all the assets do get spent, and people do end up on the Medicaid to cover it.
Correct. Okay. But you have to be everything has to be
right.
Like there's nothing left. There's nothing left.
Yeah. There's nothing left. But unfortunately for some people, that is what happens.
That is so true. That is so true. Well, thank you so much, Deborah, for your question. And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to post that in the chart as well, in the comments as well. Any last tips before we move on to what healthy tips we can give people who are trying to live on a budget?
So one thing, I think it's important to really spend money on your values and not in keeping up with the Jones, right? And to kind of watch your quote splurge spending. So if spending is a problem for you, think about just waiting 24 hours to see if you really want that item. If you still want it in 24 hours later, then can consider it. But with with the ease of online shopping, if you're just clicking around, you see something you like, and it's very easy to quote overspend, right?
That's so true. When you have that Amazon app on your phone and you can just scroll and be like, oh, I want this. I want this. I was actually talking to a patient this week and we were talking about, she was showing me this Facebook group, which has all these Walmart, Amazon clearances. And she's like, I bought stuff so much, but I didn't need it. And my husband told me I need to take it back. So you're absolutely right. You have to make sure if you're gonna, to make sure you're not overspending the splurge, or make sure you have a limit to where you're spending. So like I said, so we're talking about not only wealth but health too, and thriving in both areas. So for those who are on a budget friendly tip, some healthy tips for those who are budget friendly, because sometimes going to the gym or sometimes eating organic may not be in your budget, and it may not, but there are some things that you can do to help you be more sustainable and still be able to make progress in your health. So the first thing is, let's look at exercise. Yeah, you may not be able to go to the gym. Sometimes the gym can be $19.99 a month, $20, or if you go to like Planet Fitness, maybe $10 a month, and that may just not be in the budget. And so one way that you can do is that, number one, you can always go outside and walk. Number two, you can always do exercises at home. YouTube is a great resource.
I was just going to say, there are so many exercise videos on YouTube. I mean, and lots of home exercise things. And there's so much you can do at home, like push-ups and sit-ups and squats. And I mean, you can have a very, full body workout just at home.
No, you're absolutely right. You really can. You can be so active at home and you don't have to leave your house and you don't have to pay for it because YouTube is free. People put out good content on that. So you're absolutely right. YouTube is great. And like you said, the home exercises, you can get resistance bands at like your local Target, Walmart, and you can be able to use that and still get a good workout. The goal thing is just to start and then get into what you're going to do, or even write it out. The other thing I would say, the tip is how to eat healthy on a budget. So a lot of times we talk about the fact that, it's expensive, healthy foods, vegetables and fruits are expensive. But if we look at the cost of what a burger would cost you, right? A burger from McDonald's on their $1 meal may cost you $1. But if you ate that burger every single day, you may end up with high cholesterol. You may end up with high blood pressure. You may end up with diabetes. And so that cost of not only, for diabetes, the cost of just the medication, the cost of the test strips, the Lancets, all these things, it actually may be more money than if you had just eaten healthy. And then on top of that, your health, which is wealth, you're not able to work if you're unhealthy, or if something happens, you have a stroke or a heart attack, it may make it difficult for you to work at that point, but it will play a role down the line. So focusing on, eating healthier foods, it may not necessarily be fresh foods. You may be able to get like frozen vegetables, frozen fruits for your smoothie.
Actually frozen vegetables, like they're fresh frozen, so they can actually be more nutritious than quote fresh vegetables. If you buy some fresh vegetables from the grocery store and like you leave them in your refrigerator for a week, those frozen vegetables are actually more nutritious, because the vegetable loses its nutrition as time goes on, the nutritious components. And so when you freeze it, it loses a whole bunch at once, but then it locks it in place. Whereas when it's fresh, it just continuously loses it. So every single day it becomes a little less nutritious.
Yeah, thank you so much for adding that point, because now these are options that you can do that are a little bit easier for you and maybe in budget, because a lot of times when you eat, when you're on a budget, you want to have food that's going to last. And so the frozen food is good. The other thing I would say as well, actually, those are kind of my tips there for health. Any other tips you had, Dr. John?
Yeah, no, I love how you brought up just eating frozen or canned. I just get your vegetables in. I think that's super important. And there are ways of really doing it in a, money conscious way.
Yeah. So just having that, being on a budget does not mean you can't be healthy. It can't be healthy. Our last question is from Deborah Clark is, what is a good budget app to use? Is there any that you use or recommend?
So there's YNAB, like you need a budget. That's one that some people like. And then there's Mint, which also some people like, and they kind of work very differently. So you got to figure out like what kind of style you like. You know, some people, I actually just use an Excel sheet, you know, so simple spreadsheet. So yeah, but the key is finding something that you're actually going to use and what works for you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I actually like pen and paper. Like for some reason, writing it out helps me in my mind. So weird. So weird. Well, alrighty. Well, how can someone work with you?
Yeah, so best easiest thing is to go to my website, growyourwealthymindset.com. You can sign up for my email list. You know, I do webinars, and so if you sign up for that email list, you'll find out about the webinars. You can also set up a consultation call with me there if you're interested in actually working together.
Oh, awesome. So we'll put the link in the comments so you'll be able to log on to get to her website. And the one thing that I'm having is that I'm having a 5-day Thrive for Life Kickstart Challenge where we're helping people with their who are busy individuals get back on track with their healthy lifestyle. So feel free to join us. It's going to be a 5-day challenge, and I'll place that link in the comments as well. Well, anything else you want to add before we close out?
No, this has been a great discussion. I think it'll be beneficial to a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to our special edition of Thrive for Life Facebook Live, How to Thrive in Wealth and Health. This is your host, Dr. Elisa Shelley, and I'm so excited that you all will have joined us today. And even if you were looking at the replay, feel free to leave a comment. We'll be looking at it. All right. Have a great day.